image wisdom, and I was like, oh, so yeah, I just need to think about what that means.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm gonna keep this today, because what I've got today is that I got basically a morning.
Dig your horns into me.
Okay, well, so we started off with the fulfilling reception, and we said, so we sort of did this part.
Crew of pirate ship seeking treasure without direction steering the ship, and the waters were rocky. I said I'm part of the crew, just so it's clear.
Right, and then we had the crew, and the direction is ship.
Yeah, I didn't really know.
Well, let me see, so we have.
It's not easy,
Well,
right? 'Cause
yeah.
there's so many different.
Well, the thing is that so let's look at this in terms of polarity. Polarity is the things that they're not like positive and negative.
Okay.
So they're the things that are in opposition, at least in the statement. And what's in opposition in the statement here is the crew working to steer the ship and the treasure.
Oh, okay.
Those are the two things that are in opposition. The crew is actually more of the unifying thing between those two.
Okay, so the crew and the treasure?
No, not the crew.
No.
The crew working to steer the ship and the treasure, because those are the two opposing things. And so together they will create the success. But either the crew is treasure seeking. Remember, that's the thing and that's how they can think of.
Yeah.
Or they are just staying focused and directing the ship, working on steering the ship.
Right.
And those two things are in opposition.
Okay, I got it.
And then the crew is just the unifying thing, which includes you as the captain. And so then we say, how is the treasure related to the crew? Well, the crew is seeking, treasure in there. The crew is seeking the treasure, and the crew, of course, must steer the ship. And that's how that's the connection. So the crew becomes the unifying thing rather than in opposition to the direction of the ship.
So the crew and then...
Well, the crew doesn't go here. We just say that in both cases, this is the crew. The crew is doing two things. The crew is over here steering the ship, so we can just put crew. Like you don't put crew here. How are these things unified? They're unified by the crew. Is the point.
Okay.
So crew steering the ship, crew seeking treasure, and these are the things. So this is steering the ship, and this is treasure seeking, and this is over here is the unity it has with this is that the crew is going to be doing these things, one or the other, and they're kind of in a position.
So these are both crew?
Yeah, this is the crew relating to the directing slip, and you might come up with a quality here. So we say, how is the crew relating to treasure? And you could put that here. So you can say impatient, or whatever, and then you can say, how is the crew relating to direction seeking? Unfocused.
Oh, good. Yeah.
We want to increase their focus here and increase their patience here.
I just thought of something which is really interesting. My class is working to steer the ship to get to the treasure, and my class had this weird fixation with trinkets. I know a lot of kids do that. Yeah, but most of the class had it. They had to have trinkets.
Right.
And I've seen a lot of kids who gravitate toward that. But
right.
It was like a plague in there, and eventually that kind of calmed down toward the end of the year once I was able to work on some things to support it. But
and this is okay for opposition, because we say the success of this is that the crew does become patient and therefore it's focused. And if they don't become patient and focused, then they end up destroying the ship. In opposition to this is the destruction of the ship. So here is a successful
it's either
opposition.
or. This is either or. Works in harmony or destroys the ship.
No, it's let's just let it be that they either succeed or they don't succeed.
Okay.
If we how we do it. And then in the middle, yeah, in the middle you can say the resolution is that, of course, if you steer the, if you captain the ship, then they will find the treasure.
Right.
If they become patient and focused, then they overcome this tendency and they find the treasure. Okay, so now we got to remember these are images. We're already worked a little bit too far out of imagery, but we have an image of a crew on a pirate ship, and we have an image of the crew being treasure seeking, being greedy, impatient treasure seekers, and we have an image of them being failing to steer, unfocused and steering, not working together to steer the ship. And then we have an image of them becoming patient and working together to steer the ship. So now what we want to do is we want to get the revelations out of this.
Okay.
We don't want to, got to be careful putting, the next part is the most difficult part.
Yeah, I didn't know what to do.
Okay, so we want to look at this. We got to look at the image itself, and we got to say, in the relationship between these things. And what we see, a lot of times look at the polarity itself. The polarity, what information is this polarity giving us? We have crew. Oh, that's right. So one of the elements we have is the idea. We have the pirate ship, and we have the crew. So those are really the images we want to look at. What is the ideal pirate ship revealed to us? You know, about the curriculum. Remember the curriculum. So we got to go back to curriculum. The curriculum is we look at what it tells us about the capacity building of the year. The capacity building of the year is this whole thing of analysis. You know, so we can look at. When we think of what is the idea of a pirate ship crew, this whole thing will tell us about analysis and what could strengthen and weaken. Oh, but we said another goal for the class was this. No, we said the other thing is not just that capacity, but we talked about just to go for social cohesiveness.
Yeah.
That's one.
And that's where I had a hard time with this page, because I kept thinking about my image, and I was thinking, is this a social issue or is this a curriculum thing, that I'm trying to work through? Like, I couldn't figure out what it was.
Usually it's curriculum, but I mean, we might see how the way we're going to work, how this may give us ideas to work on the curriculum in such a way that it enhances social
to help
care.
Support them. Okay.
And so we want to look at this ideal crew, pirate ship. So yeah, we want to stay with crew and pirate ship. Oh, we're always forgetting a little bit our calendar of the soul, which is based on the water. That's going to be that would be more the next one.
I thought about that, but it seemed to add too many factors, and I just
didn't
know how to.
It can incorporate in the next one.
Okay.
But a ship. What is it? A ship on the water. What does it tell us about either social analysis, the character of that that we might want to be looking at? In this case, one element of this is that this picture is more a picture in time. So that's one thing we can look at this. This is more like this is not a picture because the ship has to move, it's to go someplace. So it could be a very different picture. For instance, if you have an opposition there. Getting to the treasure is a picture in time, but the work that crew does is a picture in space. Right on the ship. We look at the ship, then we have a spatial element, no type of element. So we can look at those right now, really, as so we can put up here. We have crew and ship, and what does it tell us about analysis? The cognitive capacity of analysis. What does it reveal to us? What is there? And the one thing we recognize is that it gives us a polarity, and a polarity is a polarity in terms of how the TAMARTs are expressed as seeking of treasure. So you have seeking of treasure over here. So this is an expression. We can look at this as how things are going to be expressed in the TAMARTs.
Okay.
And then over here we have the crew steering the ship as a way we can look as an indication of how we're going to look at space arts. Because those are our two things we really have to look at. So we can ask ourselves, this idea of the TAMART, that gives us information right there. It tells us that you might want to be weary of. It tells us the TAMARTs should be, probably in my sense, the TAMARTs you want to make sure are very much methodical and disciplined. The TAMARTs,
Okay.
so that the treasure seeking of the TAMARTs doesn't. An example is just doing a skip counting. Are they actually doing the feet work right?
Okay.
We focus on that. Don't let them be going like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Right.
And not actually doing 1, 2, 3. We try to really get them into that. And one way to do that, make sure they pause. I'm a lad, light and gay. So you first focus on the pauses. And then after you focus on the pauses, you got them doing the pauses, then you focus on making sure they're doing the number of steps in between. So that might be one thing that you might want to look at in the TAMARTs. And this could be just the opposite. It could be that the children, we could have had an image that said that they were lethargic, or we might want to speed up the TAMART, but this one I think is indicating that with the whole treasure seeking thing, that the TAMARTs we might want to look at making sure that they aren't just treasure seeking and not being here now in it. And now in the space art, think about the deck of a ship, a pirate ship. What if you were thinking about doing a drawing in your book, and say if you looked at one of the children's drawing and you characterized this looks like the deck of a pirate ship, what would you be saying about it?
What would I be saying about?
Of a child pirate tutor main lesson book, and they did a drawing, and you looked at it and your picture, and you saw this looks like the deck of a pirate ship. What would you be saying about that? What would that simile mean? That someone's drawings look like the deck of a pirate ship.
What would the deck look like?
Yeah, deck of a pirate ship. I'm using that as a simile for what they're drawing. I could say, let me give you an example. I could say this looks like a pigsty. It's more obvious that what maybe I'm thinking the drawing than what the drawing looks like, because I say it's a pigsty, maybe dirty but what we're saying, it looks like the deck of a pirate ship.
What would the child's drawing have looked like if I said that?
If you said that, yeah.
Chaos, unorganized.
My
image of the children on a pirate ship is like with the first week of school when you're trying to teach them how to do their cleaning period, their housekeeping period, and no one knows how to do their job, and they're just like fighting over the broom.
Right.
That's my vision of that.
Yeah. And so and let's take the word chaos really well. Chaos, and then where's the underlying root to chaos? I'm gonna give you some examples. The chaos could arise out of sensory integration issues, and might be an indication because in reality, to run a ship, everything has its place. Everything, you have things which are functional, yet if they're not aware of the functionality because of their lack of capacity, like say for instance, they draw a picture, and in the picture, when we draw pictures in the water curriculum, we are using the spatial relationships to indicate a concept. And say the children don't, that's not there. The children don't draw in response to what we like, so their picture doesn't hold the concept. Say you had things, one thing was small and one thing was big, things were placed in certain places, but when they put them on their paper, they placed them anywhere. And The thing that was tall is just short. No, they're all the same size. So they didn't perceive the functionality at all of the, of how the ship is sailed.
Right.
And so that would be an element that you would have to then look at, is the fact that in this case, as pirates, they haven't really learned, how the things on the ship function to steer it properly. And that's something that you may have to be looking at. So how do I make sure when I look at their drawings, if I have drawn on the board some indicator like here, that's even what we have right here. We have this graphic. Will the children be able to orient this graphic correctly? This is like not being able to steer the ship, not knowing the functionality of the mast and the different oar and things on the ship, so that we end up with this sort of chaos. But the chaos is born out of this not in the moment recognizing, no, this is the mast, this is the sail,
right.
These are how the things fit together. And, just be something that you have in your consciousness and have to work with the curriculum. It's a normal thing in the first grade, but this may indicate that you may have more than that, because the children have a lack of ability,
Yeah, for example, a lot of them, do you need to get that?
No, I don't answer the phone, listen.
I emailed you today and I probably isn't going to check this, and I'll probably call him, and I don't know if he'll answer, and I don't know, and then he'll be waiting for me.
Oh, you think it's for you?
Yeah, because I emailed you to make sure, because I didn't know if you'd answer the phone if I called. I emailed you today about meeting later.
Right. Oh,
but you did answer
called
the
me.
phone.
I did, because you had heart on there.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, you got lucky there, I tell you.
Anyway, yeah, I noticed some of the children, most of them, really want to follow the order, which I might lay that out, but then there's so many of them that just don't even look at it twice, and they just start putting it down.
Exactly.
I mean, I could say this is exactly how we're doing it, and our children like William Hunter is just rushing to him well enough to know how he operates.
Right. And so that's something you're going to have to think about in your curriculum to help the children out.
Okay.
How they're going to really learn what these things on the pirate ship, how they really function together, so that they can steer the ship. Otherwise they aren't going to be able to steer the ship. They're going to be frustrated. They want the treasure. So they're, and all of this will help. Even the Tamwork part, getting them to pause between the parts of the skip counting. All of that's going to help their sensory integration. So you're kind of bringing to. This is like getting them to be patient. Getting them to be patient here will help them be able to recognize what the functionality is in the ship over here. And so we can say that, so we can maybe re-articulate just a little bit in the light of what we've said here, that you need here in regard to the Tamwork, we need to bring more clear, when you're playing music, this is really rest and melody. You got to get the beat of the beat has to be brought clearly. The rhythm has to be brought clearly. It's one of our goals in this. And so we have rhythm, and we have rhythm and place, really, because space what's place. So here's where the mass is, and so we can actually kind of rethink this and say that the pirate ship represents the need for for encouraging a sense of rhythm and place for the children. Because without that, they won't be able to steer the ship.
I don't know why I do that, but maybe there's a reason for it. When I write words, I skip letters and write the end, and then have to go back and insert the letter. Do you do that? Is that normal? Like if I go to write place, I'll write like and then I have forgotten the A.
Hmm.
But I already have it in my head. I know that it goes
Right.
there.
Well, you know,
It's
maybe,
the weirdest thing.
yeah, maybe because, you know, ultimately as adults, we read visually, visual recognition. We don't. That's why you've seen those. I don't know if you've seen those things they write where all the letters are left out, and we still can read it.
Yeah.
We can read it
So
because
you
we
know.
actually have visual recognition of the shape of the letter, and we actually read by that. So we can still read it, even though all the letters are gone. It's just
Like I don't need it
letter.
anymore, so I've just
Right.
excluded
And
it.
so what comes to you is the visual picture of the word. And the visual picture, you don't need the other short letters. All you need is the PL, and then the rest of it is
PLC, and I know what it means.
right. You know, so it
Am
could
I
be just.
developing some kind of dyslexia?
Well, we all develop a dyslexia in a sense. You know, we all develop the capacity to ignore the actual phonetic quality of the word and only do visual recognition. You know. So you know, so this is, we haven't done all these, but then the next part of this, of course, is to, and I think it's where we can use our calendar of the year. This is where we use the real report that we have when we had these 4 seasons. I don't know if you remember, you have it written down still. I wrote it back here.
No, we have that in your note.
Yeah. So in terms of the water, we talked about how we're starting in the autumn, and the wind, it's windy, and so the water's a little bit choppy. So then what we're going to do is kind of look at that seasonal element and see if we can bring, well, and really at this point you're trying to bring it down to the, no, this is not the right one. Oh, the next one.
That's the last one I had.
Should have
This
had
is
one.
the same. It's structural.
Oh, you're missing one then.
There's only 3, right?
Oh, this is it right here. Oh, we've been working the wrong one. We should have been working on this one. This one we wrote over here. Oh, which one we just did? Where's the one we just did?
This is page 2. 1, 2, that's page 3.
No, this is page 3, supposedly.
Oh, whoops. We just got them backwards.
Yeah, because this is what we're doing last.
We'll just change, there's nothing written in it, so let's just put page 3. This is page.
Well, but we already wrote this, right? That's what we just wrote?
Yeah, we just wrote that.
So that's page 2. So let's put 2 on there, because this is what we should have been writing 2. This should be 3 over here.
Right.
3 should be about this.
This is the wrong part.
Yeah, exactly. And so now we're actually looking at how based on this needs of the curriculum, we're going to structure our 2-fold and 3-fold lessons. And we already talked a little bit about that, because the 2-fold lessons is space and time arc, and the 3-fold lessons are willing, feeling, and thinking. And so we're going to ask ourselves, what do we bring to these to be able to achieve this?
Right.
And so, what do we have up here? We're already close, because we said the ship represents the need for rhythm and place, which is really already working with the 2-fold lesson. So it's saying that one thing you're going to do is really and I do a lot with the 2-fold lesson. You see, I have more in and out breaths than most people do in their morning lesson, and that's why I have the morning work as an in breath, and then I have the out breath. So you can be looking at this, and you're looking at the morning work, and you're asking yourself, and in the space arts, how am I paying attention to place? You know, how am I making sure that the children are being aware of how the children are having with place and position, and also what's the other word? And measure, I guess, because whether things are tall when they're supposed to be tall, and short when they're supposed to be short. We just take the example of morning work right here is the alphabet. So that's the alphabet, the letters. So letters are definitely a thing where we're looking at place and looking at orientation, and so it's saying that that's going to be an important element there. Is that we try to come up with ways that we're going to enhance that capacity in the children for that. And I did that with a poem, and I don't know if I can find the poem again. I had a whole poem that was earth, wind, it was a 4 elements, and each of the elements described how you made a certain kind of letter. I had earth letters, and I had wind letters, and fire letters. And so I could use those poems when I saw the children weren't paying attention to this stuff. I use those poems to reinforce my expectations for that letter writing. So you might look at that and have some elements to help them with that quality of place and position. You know.
See, I did it again. Reinforce.
Just throw away the vowels. I don't know, maybe you're a constant kind of person, a picture letter kind of person. I don't know. So yeah. And so that's what you're going to be doing, looking at then. You're going to take these ideals, and now you take these needs, and you take these elements, and you try to plug them into the daily rhythm. Where am I going to work on these in the daily rhythm? That's the 2 and 3-fold rhythm of the day.
Okay.
And that's what you want to get some ideals down about how you're going to do that. Like we just said, one way is to make sure you have a poem that helps them with the letter formation. The next thing is the movement. So now we're in a rhythmic place, and we talked about things you want to focus on the rhythm, and you want to make sure they get where are the pauses, that are there in whatever movement activities, because that's the most important thing. When you're doing the rhythm.
Am I supposed to be putting this in here, or is that something?
Well, that's what this ideal. You can do it later, but like we just talked about. So let's, in general, we want to we copied. Did you put that in already?
I already had that, and this is what I was working with. But
so we can just say that we can just copy what we had over here. We want to be working with rhythm and place. Okay. That would be our thing. And the polarity is obviously here, the rhythm and place. But we know what we want to add. We want to say what, how. So we just talked about. Then we're going to talk about how we're going to motivate these things. You can just go through here now, through your day, and look at when you're working in the time arts and when you're working in the space arts, and ask yourself, how are you then going to enrich the capacity of the children to become aware of rhythm and place? Mm-hmm. And in general, in the time arts, you're talking about making sure their breaths, their pauses, and in the space arts, you got to have kind of ways of motivating the attention. So here you have breathing. So breathing and attention are kind of the two things. In terms of rhythm, it's breathing. You got to make sure that the pause is in the breathing. Okay. And in
I think I should put rhythm and place on one of these, like on an opposing side.
So yeah, I mean, this is breathing is rhythm, so you can put rhythm over here. Okay. So in here we're looking at the pauses in breathing. We want to try to bring attention to those as we're doing the time art elements that are in our thing. You can even look in one ingredient. You can be looking at that. Now, all the different places where you're working with a time art element, you want to movement or wherever. Even like, and we have to like say the ba ka da, making sure you get that rhythm. Ba ka da, so they don't go ba ka da fa ga. They go ba ka da. Pay attention to that. Wherever you're working with rhythm, pay attention to the pauses and the in breath to try to enrich that for them. And then over here, if this is breathing, this would be more like attention. Place, we want them to become attentive to you want them to be attentive to a little bit of the place and position, the measure, attentive to what's that in general?
It's space. Like
well, what you want them to have attention to is relation. Yeah, so that's it. And you got to think about how you do that. So the relation, you want to be attentive to relationships that are in the spatial.
That's punny.
Relationships. Glad you saw that. Cause I pun to my wife's distress. I missed that one. But yeah, exactly, the relationships. And so that if you draw something and this one being short and one being tall is important, somehow you have to have maybe, and like in the case of the letters, we have a poem to bring attention to the relationships between the different kinds of words. And same thing, you might want to find that in other, it's another example. Well, when you're drawing pictures in general, let me think of another concept you might be drawing.
Yeah.
Well, even here, right here, with this relationships, we have this thing right here, this separation, this before and after element, that they don't miss that. I mean, we can draw this graphic and put that in there, and we can maybe not bring attention to that enough, so that they don't really get it. So how can we bring attention to this?
Well, yeah, and bringing that
parentheses and counting to 10, all of these are things that we want them to. We need to know that we need to have some awareness of how we have actually reinforced that relationship, not just put it before them.
It's almost like the methods, right? Like their method of. Does that make sense? Like the following the method that I'm teaching.
Right, they're following it.
It's like also goes back to following my ego presence, which relates to the
you being the captain and because what it is, you can do this and it could be inattentive to why you put it there.
Right.
And so this idea that so you might say there were 6 before, and maybe before I closed the door. You would use some little quality, you'd try to enrich that in their mind. And it could be just that, making a little bit of a poem there. And you would have to know that, if I just write this in a graphic thing and put the line there, and I don't use maybe some verse, some way. It's like in general, the relationships that those poems I talked about when we're doing the phlegmatic thing, the themes, I have these poems, and that's what those poems do. The poems draw attention by saying the poem. The children make a mistake, I go back to the poem, and I read the poem again. Yeah. And that poem, those poems are really important ways. Poems are really important ways to be able to remind children of what you want them to be attentive to. So I'll try to get more. I got food to offer you.
Is that for me?
I'll put it to you. Well, I was going to eat it too, but then I said, well.
I'm sorry, can I have some?
Yes, you may have some fruit.
Did you hear my belly?
No, I didn't hear your belly. But
Thanks.
So yeah, I mean, and like I said, I'll get to those 4 poems I wrote, and then you can. But poems seems to be the way that I work with the actual content, relationships, is to write a poem to bring attention to whatever I want to bring attention to. So I just have a few rhyming words that are in there to help bring attention to that kind of stuff like that. So.
What about this part?
Well, if you go all the way through detail, you get even more. We still haven't really worked with the willing, feeling, and thinking, aspect of this. So how would this inform willing, feeling, and thinking? When we're basically using the twofold here, we did the twofold articulation quite well, and this tends to present itself. What about in here? There it is. The threefold is going to be in that seasonal water. The water is obviously, the whole thing with the calm seas. So that's how we can look at the threefoldness. We have this thing we did last week. We're looking at that the journey itself during the year, and then you can take and ask yourself, how do I make a microcosm of the journey through the year in each day a little bit. And if we look at the 4 seasons as including willing, feeling, and thinking, and then maybe some resolution. So we have the windy element, which is the rough waters, and then we had the calm seas, the doldrums, and what was it? I got it right here. And then we had, I skipped one. So we had calm, and we had the doldrums. The doldrums were the winter time. Is that all we did was the 3? I think we just did 3, so
We
that
did
works.
3, yeah.
So we have the calm. So we have the choppy waters, the calm seas, and then how did we characterize
Because we don't
the
really
spring?
have summer.
How did we characterize the spring, though? We had something. Did I characterize?
Spring was like their satisfaction of their
Oh,
arrival.
the currents. That was the difference. The choppy waters were a result of the wind blowing, and then the current flowing was the spring. The current flowing, there's the doldrums are over, and the currents are flowing, and now the water is moving us along, whereas the wind was causing difficulty before. That's an interesting distinction to look at in terms of what's causing, whether you're dealing with wind or water as the moving element.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're saying in the autumn we have a windy kind of situation, and then we have the water coming into its element in the spring and taking us on, to our destination. And then we have the calmness. So in terms of willing, feeling, and thinking, we're trying to intuit which of these seasonal qualities are we bringing to willing, feeling, and thinking for these children.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as will, and who are they in their will, and what we need to bring? You would think in their will that we need to think about. Maybe they're willing. This could even go into in terms of how we even set up a rhythm in a circle. Do we start with willing? Do we start with the feeling content? Usually, you want to go willing, feeling, and thinking in a circle.
Mm-hmm.
But in this case, I think it's the feeling content that is the choppy waters. It's the wind element.
That sounds right.
And so there seems to be this necessity to move that feeling content of the class into a calm place if we're going to really direct their wheels.
Mm-hmm.
So we talked about engagement. So he's telling me that, you need to engage the feeling content as a way for these children. You need so I would say you need to work with your astral content,
Okay.
which are the poems and things like that. Making sure that you have little poems and things that help the children see relationships, to help direct them in the classroom. Really, that's something it really works. I use those. Even now, I go down to this camp, and I use my poems. Sitting like the royal and the wise. 1, 2, 3, give me your attention, please. I use these little astral poems to direct, rather than doing. I talked about using less commands before, direct commands, and so you need to engage the children's feeling life with this astral content, and therefore be able to give you capacity to direct their will more when you need them to really do the work. In the winter, so their willing this time is more of a winter element, and their feeling is more the autumn element, and then their thinking can emerge in the spring. And the thinking then, and the water, the current metaphor works because the thinking then will emerge, as the current that takes them on to where they need to go. And so now we have some incorporation. So whenever you're thinking of a day and you're thinking of bringing the willing, feeling, thinking element throughout the day, be thinking of, okay, well, I'm going to be bringing the feeling element here. I want to get them in their wheel. So I got to make sure that I have imagery that I'm going to engage their feeling life, so that they come with me and they don't go somewhere else regurgitating and take off in a different direction. Then I can move their willing to steer the ship. And then we'll discover these currents that are under us and taking us in a certain direction, Yeah,
you kind of hit the nail on the head with that.
Yeah. Metaphor and simile. When I was in my first group of children I had, by the time we got to the 5th grade, we were studying, I don't know if you know the Mahabharata. So it's ancient Indian story we tell in the 5th grade, and it's about the Pandava brothers. And Pandava, they're 5 brothers, and they go on this whole journey. There's wars, and it's just a wonderful story for the 5th grade children. I really love it. And then we were also doing how to write an expository paper, our persuasive paper also. And I said, Now, I said, can you all see how the 5 Pandava brothers are related to writing, a persuasive paper? They said, no, Mr. Japa, but we're sure you will, make up something. The point is, I'm saying that I'm good with metaphors.
I know you are.
So, and by the time I got to 5th grade with them, they said, oh yeah, we're sure you can make up something, Mr. Japa. You're good at that.
Nice.
Yeah.